There are moments in history when human survival hinges on desperation and misfortune. One such story unfolded in 1607, not in Virginia like Jamestown, but further north, on the rugged coast of what is now Maine. The Popham Colony, sometimes called the Sagadahoc Colony, was meant to be England's foothold in the New World. But it became a tale of mismanagement, starvation, and despair, a colony that, in whispers, earned a reputation as the settlement that consumed itself. The colony was founded under the auspices of the Plymouth Company, part of King James I's ambition to expand English influence and profit from the resources of the New World. Unlike Jamestown, which is often remembered for its brutal struggles, the Popham Colony was short-lived, lasting barely a year. Yet the suffering endured there would become legend among those who dared to venture to Maine's unforgiving coast. The settlers arrived in August 1607 aboard 2 ships, the Gift of God and the Mary and John. The journey across the Atlantic had been long, difficult, and exhausting. They brought with them a mix of craftsmen, laborers, and gentleman men, unprepared for the harsh winters, the rocky soil, and the unfamiliar challenges of the Maine coastline. Unlike Jamestown, which had some support from neighboring tribes, the Popham colonists were isolated without reliable local alliances. The colony was established at the mouth of the Kennebec River, on land that appeared promising but concealed its difficulties. Trees were plentiful, but soil was thin, rocky, and poorly suited for agriculture. Freshwater streams ran intermittently, and the coastline was jagged and exposed to storms that could destroy shelters in hours. The first months were already fraught with difficulty. Supplies brought from England were limited, and the settlers underestimated the cold of the Maine winter. Crops failed to thrive. Attempts to hunt and fish were met with unpredictable success. Wolves and bears prowled the forests, adding an element of fear to every excursion beyond the small fort. Men argued over leadership, over rations, and over the minutiae of survival, and the tension among the settlers began to mount. By winter, disease had arrived. Dysentery and scurvy ravaged the colony. Food ran dangerously low. The settlers were forced to ration, often giving children and weaker men the smallest portions. Foraging parties returned with meager catches of fish, shellfish, and small game. Some colonists began to whisper about eating the animals they had raised, catal and pig's butt. Even those were few and could not sustain everyone. Morale dropped with every passing week. The colony had been designed as a profit-making venture, not a haven for survival. Tools broke, food spoiled, and the relentless cold made every task arduous. The fort itself was barely completed. Wooden palisades and rudimentary shelters offered little protection against the wind and snow. The settlers had no choice but to cling together, even as disputes over rationing and labor turned bitter. Reports from the colony's leaders, preserved in letters to the Plymouth Company, revealed the growing desperation. Soldiers and gentlemen alike struggled with the manual labor required to sustain the settlement. Some accounts speak of men becoming weak from hunger, unable to perform even the simplest tasks. Arguments erupted over who should receive priority in food distribution. It was during this period that the most harrowing stories began. Some settlers reportedly turned to extreme measures, consuming anything they could find. Evidence suggests that in the coldest months, when food was almost entirely gone, they resorted to eating animals already weakened by starvation. And, in some cases, the colony may have consumed animals that were too small to be useful for work pets, livestock, even horses. The psychological toll was immense. Men who had once been confident and ambitious were reduced to shadows of themselves. Discipline broke down. Fights erupted over scraps of food. Chronic illness made coordination of essential work nearly impossible. Those who fell sick were sometimes abandoned to die alone, left to the mercy of the harsh winter in the unforgiving land. By spring, the colony's situation had worsened. Disease continued to claim lives. Supplies from England were delayed, and the harsh winter had destroyed much of what little the colonists had managed to grow or hunt. Leaders realized that without immediate relief, the settlement would not survive. Some colonists considered returning to England, but the treacherous journey north along the Atlantic coast was dangerous in its own right. One of the most infamous decisions made by the colonists was their attempt to stretch meager food supplies. Historical records hint at rationing so extreme that people were on the brink of starvation. Some ate plants that were otherwise considered inedible, while others scavenged whatever small animals they could trap. There are suggestions that desperate colonists may have consumed the remains of those who had died from starvation or disease, though evidence is sparse and often debated. The truth is that the psychological strain of hunger and isolation created an environment where survival instincts overpowered morality. The colony's leadership attempted to maintain order. Captain George Popham, after whom the colony was named, sought to enforce discipline and encourage agricultural development, but he died unexpectedly after less than a year. His death dealt a fatal blow to morale. Without strong leadership, the remaining colonists debated their next steps. Some urged persistence, hoping relief or additional supplies would arrive. Others recognized the futility of continuing. In the end, the colony made a collective decision to abandon the settlement. By 1608, barely a year after its founding, the Popham colony was left to the elements. Survivors boarded the ships and returned to England, leaving behind the fort, the unfinished buildings, and the land that had refused to sustain them. What makes Popham colony so haunting is not just its failure, but the signs of desperation it left behind. Archaeological evidence points to skeletal remains showing malnutrition. Tools and weapons were abandoned, and livestock that could not be carried away were left to die. The land that had seemed full of promise became a frozen graveyard of ambition and hunger. The story of Popham colony serves as a stark reminder of the perils of colonization, particularly in a landscape as unforgiving as the Maine coast. Ambition and planning, no matter how meticulous, can falter in the face of nature's indifference and human frailty. Hunger, disease, and isolation can turn a community inward, eroding morality and survival alike. Though short-lived, the Popham colony left a legacy. Its failure influenced English colonization strategies, steering attention southward to Virginia and eventually New England. And the whispers of desperation, the colony that ate its own, remain a chilling testament to human endurance and the limits of ambition.